Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Inspiration Corner. My name is Gary Taylor, the pastor of Open Word Christian Ministries, and I am so delighted and excited that you joined me on today. Now, last week we had some discussion around this whole communication in family and how families should communicate with each other. Today, I want to talk about a very, very important word that a lot of people have challenges with doing. It's called listening. What was that you heard me? What was that I said that you didn't hear me say? I mean, a lot of times we run into that situation. Husbands and wives running into that situation. You never listen. Or parents telling their children, you don't listen. Or the children telling their parents, Mom, Dad, you don't listen. Somebody's always interacting with you in family and will tell you that you're not listening. Well, we're going to get into that in this segment today on Are You Listening? That's what I want to talk about today. So let's go ahead without any further delay or ado, and let's get into this thing. James chapter 1 and verse 19 says this, My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now let's look at this word listen for a moment. It means to give one's attention to a sound, to take notice of or act on what someone says, respond to advice or a request, make an effort to hear something, be alert and ready to hear something. Listening is vitally important to every relationship in our family. So now, check this out. People spend between 70 and 80% of their day engaging in some form of communication. And about 55% of their time is devoted to listening. Research suggests that the average person hears between 20,000 and 30,000 words during the course of a 24-hour period. Did you know that? That's a lot of words. So what is the average rate or speaking rate for people? Some people can chatter on an average of 125 to 175 words per minute. That's a lot of chatter. That's a lot of listening. So now, how many words do we listen to per minute? Let's check this out. Your ears work a little faster than your mouth. The average number of words you're able to listen to per minute is about 450 words. Now, let's add in social media, listening to videos, listening to music, okay? We're always listening to something. So how much of what we hear is being absorbed? Well, even though your ears are capable of picking up so many words, your brain doesn't necessarily process them all. Most people usually remember only 17 to 25% of the things that they listen to. Wow. 17 to 25% you remember of that 450 words coming to you. You only remember 17 to 25%. So here's a question for you when it relates to family. Are men or women better listeners? I know some of you say, my man don't hear nothing. My daddy don't hear nothing. My husband don't hear nothing. My boyfriend, my uncle, my grandfather. Men don't listen. Well, some men will say women don't listen. So who's the better listener? Let's check this out. Research shows that men only use half their brain to listen, while women engage both sides of the brain here, both of their ears rather, both lobes, if you please, okay? If you're consistently feeling your spouse or significant other is tuning you out, this is why. Men only engage but so much. Then after, they go on tilt. Remember the pinball machine we used to play back in the day? You know, where if you bump the thing too much, it would go on tilt. Well, a lot of men are like that. When they hear so much chatter, after a while, their brain will go on tilt. They won't hear nothing else you got to say because it's just too much brain stimulation. So how important are the words we say? Okay. You might be surprised to learn, and I said this on last week, that 93% of the nonverbal communication deals with your facial expressions and your tone of voice. Only 7% really deal with your actual verbiage or what you speak. So now let's deal with some things here. And I gave you some good information. So let's just break this down and get down with the get down, okay? Listening to another person is one of the most important ways parents and children create close, loving relationships. When kids feel seen, heard, and understood, they learn the meaning of empathy. They acquire the abilities to emotionally connect with others, make friends, and develop long-time social skills. When you listen, you learn something about your partner, your significant other. When you ignore or speak over them, you learn absolutely nothing. When you listen to your partner, your spouse, your wife, your brother, your sister, someone in your family, you learn what's important to them, what's important to him, what's important to her, what really matters to them. It gives you the opportunity to be their go-to person because you learn so much more about them. So now, let's talk about the 4 types of listening. Let's shift gears for a minute. Because most of us are not taught how to listen. We hear, and the whole time we're trying to think up a response. But a lot of us do not engage in the right kind of listening, and there are 4 kinds here. There is inactive listening, which is number 1. You hear only the words. They go in one ear and they go out of the other ear. How many of you times you told your spouse or your child, you ain't hear a word I said? It went in one ear and it went out of the other ear. You know why? They have inactive listening. Number 2, selective listening. You only hear the words, or rather, I just repeated the same thing I just said. It is when you hear only what you want to hear. It's selective words. You pick out bits and pieces of it and you formulate your opinion and your response over a selective amount of words that you heard. Now remember earlier we heard about 450 words in a day or more. Check this out. Active listening is the 3rd one. This is when you make a conscious effort not only to hear the words, but also to listen to the complete message the speaker is sending. It's to take in consideration the intent and the nonverbal communication of the speaker. Now that is important listening. When you're taking in the whole message, that is definitely active listening. But now then there is reflective listening. Now, this is something that personally I use. It is used to clarify what is being said and convey the mutual understanding. If needed, you will ask questions to help clarify the message. So when you talk about reflective listening, it goes a little like this, and a 1 and a 2, okay? It goes like this. So what I heard you say is, when I went to the store and I forgot to bring back the green beans, that made you feel like what you had to share with me about the importance of the green beans because you were cooking made you feel insignificant. It made you feel invisible. It made you feel like you weren't valuable because I forgot the green beans. Is that what I heard you say? And that person has a chance now to clarify, yes, that's exactly what I said. Now, when you're talking about reflective listening, you reflect back to them exactly what they said. You don't paraphrase what they said, all right? You repeat exactly back to them what they said. In so doing, it lets them know 2 things. Number 1, it lets them know that you're listening to them. Number 2, it lets them know that you really heard them. And it gives them the opportunity, number 3, to clarify if what they said is really what they meant. How many times have you been talking to somebody and they say something and then you repeat it back? Well, that ain't what I said. Well, that's exactly what you said. Well, that ain't what I meant. Well, then share with me what it is that you meant then. Then it gives them the opportunity to rephrase the question or rephrase the response so they can be very clear on what it is they're trying to communicate to you. So it is vitally important, ladies and gentlemen, that we understand the different types of listening, and I'll go through them again. Inactive listening, you hear only the words. They go in one ear, they come out of the other. Selective listening is when you hear what you want to hear. You select those special words that you want to keep and you discard the rest of it. Then you have active listening, that you're making a conscious effort to not only hear the words, but even the intent that the person is speaking of. And then number 4, reflective listening. This is a time when you reflect back to the person in their words exactly what they said. The reason why that's so important is because it brings value to you and also to that other person, because they understand that you are really, really listening to what it is that they have to say. And that makes it a whole lot easier to have proper communication when those things actually happen. So now, here's some, as I get ready to call it a day, here are some effective listening techniques. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. Number 1, eliminate as many distractions as you can, such as closing the door and not answering the phone. How many times you've been talking to somebody and you're having a serious conversation and they're answering their phone? Are you serious? This is not a time to be answering your phone or texting somebody back. Or playing with the dog or playing with the baby. That's not the time, because we're trying to have a serious conversation and we need to eliminate distractions. If you have a door and you have noise on the other side of that door, with it being open, close the door. You know, Teddy Pendergrass said, close the door. All right, we're not talking about that. Okay, let's go on to the second one. Eliminate as many internal distractions as you can by controlling your emotions. That's vitally important when you're talking about listening, especially if you know that you're a very emotional person, because your emotions can get in the way of what is being communicated to you. So it minimize as many internal distractions as you can, controlling your emotions. Number 3, if it's a meeting that you're having with a family member, come to the meeting prepared so that you can actively listen to others. Look over your agenda, jot down your ideas, the points you wanted to cover, and do your homework on the topic that you want to discuss. So if it's something that you're dealing with a family member, before you get into it, make sure that you're prepared. Make sure you can even write down some notes. You can even make sure that you did your homework on the subject matter at hand. That way you are prepared, and it will stop you from chasing the rabbit, as we call it. You know what that means? You're just running down the trail, chasing every rabbit that you can through this communication, and that really messes the whole thing up, because now you're all over the place, and the person you're communicating with, they have just cut you off because you're just all over the place. Now, number 4, take notes. If you begin to daydream when you're listening, take those notes, because sometimes when people are talking and they get the peanuts, wah, 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 okay, you need to be able to take some notes down so you can come back to that when you're having that time where you have to give feedback on what was said while you are actively listening, okay? Number 5, and I'm going to end with this one. Then we'll come back to it on the next session and talk about the rest of them. Do not respond only to what the speaker implies. Respond to the total communication there. Content, intent, and nonverbal communication. I'll say that again. Respond to the content, the intent, and the nonverbal communication. If you do that, it will be so much better as you're listening and as you're doing what needs to be done. I got to give you one more. I can't leave you without giving you this one more. Respond to the speaker without judging what he or she says. Remember, the intent of your listening is to really understand what is going on. That's why in your listening, you jot down those questions as you're being an active listener, because you want to understand what's going on with the person. Listen, that's all the time I have today. As we talked about listening, and I'm not finished. So don't get weary in well doing. I'm not finished by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to come in and just share with you some things. I don't want to overload you and give you some tidbits on the importance of listening so that as you engage in your communication with your spouse, with your children, with your parents, with your grandparents, and the other members of the family, you will be in a good place as you communicate. Because let me tell you something. If we don't know how to listen, how in the world can we respond? This is Gary Taylor, Open Word Christian Ministries, right here in Inspiration Corner. I love you. I'll see you Sunday, and we'll be back right here again on Inspiration Corner to talk about some more. What is it that I didn't hear you say? Listening. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.